Hey guys, welcome back to Confessions with Cassidy. I, of course, am Cassidy, and I am so happy to see you this week. This video is so important. I know I say this all the time, but this is like my own personal therapy, just speaking into the void. And this one, at least for me, is so important to talk about. And that is how to forgive your younger self. Before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're feeling extra lovely, please hit that bell so you never miss one of my videos. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Every single person has done something that they regretted. If it was a drunk night, if it was crazy 18-year-old being wild, God knows I have done my fair share of mistakes in my life, but that's okay. And that is why this video is so important. You know, we're going to talk about how to forgive yourself, and it's always going to be easier said than done. But the first step is just to start forgiving. So the first point that I want to talk about is empathy and understanding. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. When you're young, you have no idea really who you are. When I was 18, I thought I had my entire life figured out. And now I look back on little 18-year-old Cassidy and I'm like, baby girl, bless you. Like, I thought I was bigger, more powerful, more in control of myself than I was. And that's all right. You know, I was just trying to figure out who I was. And by doing that, I obviously made some not so good decisions, as everybody does. But you have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt, because you made those decisions to try and figure out who you were and who you are. And if those decisions hadn't been made, they wouldn't have led you to where you are today. When you're young, you don't really know who you want to be, how you want to present yourself to the world, how you want to be respected, how you want to be seen. And it's a lot of trial and error. And that is 100% okay. Your younger years are to explore and to figure out why you are the way you are, or where you want to be, or how you want to be perceived, and how you want to experience life. And that is such a beautiful thing. But also, along the way, there can be some really messy and embarrassing moments, and it is 100% expected. That is territory that you have to go through in order to figure out who you want to be as an adult. And that brings us to our second point, which is everything happens for a reason. I live by this quote. It is so important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people. And it's a really great way to remind yourself that every single day you can find forgiveness for your actions and for your behavior. Because in life, you're presented with so many different plot lines. And in that moment, you chose to do what you did for a reason. And you have to find forgiveness in trusting that what you did when you were younger was the right decision for what you needed to do and how you needed to grow. Even if you're not happy with that decision now, there's a reason why you made it, and you have to give empathy and understanding and the benefit of the doubt to your younger self, and trust that they, at least in that moment, were doing the best for what they needed, or how they needed to respond in that situation to protect themselves or just to grow. Not so good decisions lead to consequences most of the time. And without consequences, there's very little room for growth. And by saying that, that leads us to our third point, which is acceptance. This will be the toughest point you will have to go through, of finding a way to accept your behavior and to accept the consequences of your actions and understand that there's nothing you can do to change them. Instead of wishing to take it all back or trying to erase the memories and just putting them into a dark little hole where you don't have to look at it, embrace them. Like I said, you made those decisions for a reason, and the least you can do is support your younger self. You know, that child that is inside of you. If they were 18, 15, 12, 6, even yesterday, that is your inner child. It's a younger version than who you are today. And it is our responsibility to protect that inner child 150%. Your present self is responsible for every action that your past self has made. And you have the responsibility to choose yourself and to accept your behavior and accept the consequences and choose to protect yourself. And the easiest way to protect yourself in your conscious and your subconscious is by acceptance. An activity that I would recommend to do is to take your darkest or most embarrassing or messiest, whatever you need to forgive, those stories, and write them down in detail by hand. Find a piece of paper and write every detail you can remember down. Say thank you and light it on fire. Cleanse that from yourself and let that go. Which brings us to our fourth point, which is moving on. Once you have accepted your behavior and your actions, you are free to move on from the chains of your childhood or your younger self. With all the experiences that you have had, you are entitled to move on and find forgiveness for yourself, because you're responsible for the actions you made. And as soon as you accept, you're able to move on. And by accepting and moving on, nobody can use that against you. Not a single person can have power over you if you have already accepted your behavior. And I think that is the most powerful thing. I used to have, people come to me who knew me when I was 18, then as a 25-year-old, and speak to me as if I was still that 18-year-old. And I was like, oh yeah. And before, I would say, oh yeah, she was crazy. And I separated myself from my own identity by saying she, or oh yeah, that Cassidy was crazy. But it wasn't that Cassidy. That was me. And I am responsible for those actions, and I don't have to separate myself by calling myself crazy. I can accept myself by being like, oh my gosh, I know, I've learned so much since then. And just change the narrative, because you take the power away from somebody as soon as you acknowledge your behavior and don't let them use it against you. And there is so much power in that, because you know yourself better than anybody else does. And they don't get to influence your self-worth today based on your past decisions. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a really sensitive and important topic, and it takes a lot of empathy to get there. And it's a constant journey. I'm working on forgiveness every single day, but I really hope that you can forgive your inner child, and some of the things I say will resonate with you. As always, it was a pleasure to have you here. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.